So today we're going to talk about how to build suspense and climax in your narrative writing. Your learning target today is I can hook the reader's attention by building suspense in my writing. So in order to build suspense in our writing, I feel like we first need to understand what does the word even mean. So here's the dictionary version of suspense. You can see that there are several different meanings for the word. We're going to focus on definition number 3. This one right here. So it says suspense is the excitement felt at the approach of the climax, a play of terrifying suspense. So it's right basically when you're looking at the plot diagram and you're building up the excitement in your story. So think about if you're watching a movie and that moment where your eyes are just glued to the TV, and if the phone rings, you get so angry because you don't want to miss what's going to happen next. You want to know what's going to happen when the girl opens the door or whenever they go into the woods. It's that moment that make your eyes just almost want to pop out, kind of like what's happening with this cat here. So it's easy to find it in movies. It's easy to find that exciting moment, but it's difficult to actually write with suspense in our own writing. So I have a few tips here. So we'll start off with the exposition, the beginning part of our story, introducing the main characters in the setting. So a few tips. The first tip is to keep the character's description to a minimum. So that means don't go off and give me a whole grocery list of how they look with brown hair, brown eyes, tall, skinny, freckles. We don't need a whole grocery list of how they look. Number 2, make the reader infer using the character's actions, thoughts, feelings, and dialogue. So what we talked about last week with character traits and thinking of how we inferred their traits by things that they did and said and how they were feeling. And then step 3, you want your readers to actually root for the main character. So you want to give them a reason to be like, come on, you can do this. Or no, don't go there. So you want them to be on the main character's side. So here's an example. Avery jiggled the door of the school one more time. How could this have happened? She thought to herself. She knew she was exhausted after a late night in the emergency room with her sister Grace, but she didn't realize she had fallen asleep. She had fallen into a coma-like slumber in Miss Matthews' reading corner. When she woke up, the school was pitch black and an eerie silence filled the air. She had checked every door, but they had been locked and secured for the night. Doesn't anyone realize I'm here? Avery's mind began to race in circles. So, right away, after sentence number 2, where she says, how could this have happened? Right there we have a thought, the character's thought. And right there, that's where we're able to infer a little bit about the character. So I can infer that Avery is probably feeling really worried. She's stressed. Down here it says she knew she was exhausted after a late night in the emergency room with her sister Grace, but she didn't realize she had fallen into a coma-like slumber in Miss Matthews' reading corner. When she woke up, the school was pitch black and an eerie silence filled the air. So right here where they're saying an eerie silence filled the air, I can infer that she's feeling really scared, frightened. She doesn't know what's happening. So the author didn't have to tell me I felt frightened at that moment. We could infer that by the author just saying there was an eerie silence that filled the air. She checked every door, but they had been locked and secured for the night. Doesn't anyone realize I'm here? Avery's mind began to race in circles. So right here, one of her actions where she checked every door, but they had been locked and secured. So that tells me that, first of all, she is a problem solver. She's trying to figure out the solution to her problem. And again, she's worried, she's frightened. So the author doesn't need to tell us how exactly she's feeling. We can infer it. Okay? So you don't have to go off and tell me, I felt frightened at this moment, or I felt scared. Okay? We can infer it by the clues that you give us. And this last one here, another thought. Doesn't anyone realize I'm here? Avery's mind began to race in circles. So there's not any dialogue in this one, but that's because she's by herself for this story. So you may not always have dialogue, but we do have thoughts, which is basically some dialogue she's saying to herself in her head. Doesn't anyone realize I'm here? So we can clearly infer those feelings. And right here, this is actually building the suspense. Avery's mind began to race in circles, because you as the reader, you're wondering, well, what happened? Why did this happen? And it's building the suspense of what's going to happen next. So when we leave the exposition box and now you're going into the rising action and climax of your story, here's a few tips. So first, make the reader wonder or question what's going to happen. Second, what might your character be wondering or worrying about? And third, the rising action includes a conflict, but builds it up with some suspense. So you're building up some type of problem, but you don't want to just outright say it. So instead of saying, suddenly a ghost appeared under the big clock, because that's pretty much just right out saying it. You're not giving the reader a chance to build up that moment. You want to get that feeling like you saw with the picture of the cat, where the eyeballs are just about to pop right out. So here we are building it up. Avery stood near the doors of the cafeteria, wondering what to do next. All of the classrooms were locked up, and there was no way to call home. She had the feeling that someone or something was following her. She began to sweat and nervously look around. It's probably my imagination, she whispered. She settled down on the bench beneath the clock and tried to relax. She heard a strange rustling sound and shivered. She spun around, looked behind her. Avery's eyes opened wide at the sight of the ghost in front of her. Okay, so right here, where she began to sweat nervously and look around, and she's whispering, there's another thought / dialogue to herself. We already can tell she's nervous, she's sweating, she's wondering what she's doing. She's settling down, trying to make herself relax. And then right here is where we build up that suspense. She heard a rustling sound and shivered. She spun around and looked behind her. And instead of saying suddenly the ghost appeared, we're saying Avery's eyes opened wide at the sight of the ghost in front of her. So right there, we built the suspense with that sentence, that she was trying to relax. There was a rustling sound. She shivered, and she spun around. So it doesn't take very long. You don't need to do a whole lot of building up that suspense, but just a few sentences that are building it and building it and building up that excitement instead of just releasing the main point of the story. So when you're writing your story, check your plot plan and just try and make sure that you do include a little bit of suspense. So once you reach that climax, don't just automatically give it away, and suddenly there was a ghost in front of me. Try and build it up. How are you feeling? What are the sounds? I heard the eerie organ sound in the back suddenly, and a whooshing noise was starting to blow, or my hair started to blow suddenly inside. Even though I was inside, there was a wind that was flowing through the hallway, okay? Build it up a little bit. So hopefully this helps you out just a little bit with building up some suspense. You are welcome to use any of the words or the suspense sentences to try and help you, inspire you with your own writing. Good luck and have fun with it.